Now, last but not least, here's my take. I think that the oblique kick should 100%. Yo, what's going on, everyone? The Cool Geek here, and welcome back to Cool Geek Defence, a place where we geek out over martial arts and self-defense. I'm an ISSA certified fitness coach and future UFC champion. And today I'm going to be talking about whether or not the oblique kick should be banned from the UFC. Let's get right on into it. So I'm going to be going over all of the arguments that I've seen so far for the oblique kick being allowed, banned, and then at the very end I'll give my take on it. But before we get into any of that, what even is the oblique kick? What is an oblique kick? What does that even mean, right? And I've seen people even disagree on that. Like, what even is that? So there's a few different variations of it that all fall under the same should it be banned category. When people say should the oblique kick be banned, what they're talking about is a kick targeting the knee specifically. There's different variations. There's the one that's common in Wing Chun that John Jones sort of made people aware of, which is the sort of Kung Fu-esque knee stomp, where it's sort of a weird-looking front kick almost. It's not really a front kick, but some people call it that, even though it's really not. Then you have the side kick to the knee, also a real front kick to the knee. Those are the different variations of it that I've seen, and that all do basically the same thing. They all are used to establish distance and can potentially blow out someone's knee. Okay, so the main premise of most of the arguments surrounding the oblique kick being banned is that it only serves to do long-term damage and usually doesn't end fights. And when they do end fights, it's really bad and does proportionably more long-term damage compared to other techniques. Now, a few of the other sort of supporting arguments are people saying like, oh yeah, most of John Jones' opponents have needed knee surgeries, right? Therefore, it does a lot of long-term damage, and it can potentially end a fighter's career, right? You get a bad knee stomp, blow out someone's knee. Maybe the surgery doesn't go too well and they never fully recover, right? Or they just don't want to get the surgery, or maybe it's at a lower level and they can't afford the surgery, or, any of those factors which lead to the oblique kick not being favorable. And then you can argue, well, there's also more techniques that can do the same stuff, where people will sometimes use the oblique kick like John Jones does to keep their opponents out of punching range or stop them from coming in, at least as aggressively. And you can just use like normal front kicks to the body or side kicks to the body instead of the knee. Or some people, like I think Chael Sonnen even proposed to throw it to the thigh or something, right, instead of the actual knee. Now, those are all arguments that people have. In addition to, people like to make the comparison of, well, you don't allow eye pokes and groin shots and things of that nature because of their capacity to maim people and sort of that sort of thing. And they say it's the same thing. And so there's also that argument. And then there's a few other arguments. One is the fact that there are false equivalences being made for the other side of the argument. A lot of people will say, like, the difference between this and a submission that targets the knee is you have the chance to tap, so it's not the same thing, and, stuff like that. Those are the general arguments surrounding that. Now, most of the counter arguments to the oblique kick being banned, or just flat out arguments for it staying, right, are something along the lines of, well, fighters know what they're getting into, therefore oblique kick should be legal because they know that, hey, if I sign up for this fight, there's a chance I can get oblique kicked. So if they don't want to get oblique kicked, they can just not fight, right? So that's one argument. Another argument is the fact that if you're trying to see what's the best martial art or something, right, something along those lines, and that's the original purpose of the UFC, is that the more techniques you limit, the less you're fulfilling that initial purpose. You're not seeing what martial arts are effective if you're banning every move that causes significant damage, right? That's the entire reason we learn defenses. So instead of banning the oblique kick, the solution would be to learn defenses to it. Another argument people use to defend the oblique kick is there literally are defenses, right? Like we see Adesanya and what was it? The girl who fought the karate hottie both countered oblique kicks, right? Low side kicks specifically. And then there's other examples of different fighters countering oblique kicks, right? Anyone who's gotten an even close fight with John Jones had to do something about the oblique kick, right? Even if not nullify it completely, they had to do something about it, right? And so there are defenses. It's not like it's this, kryptonite diamond ability, this magical hacks ability that just kills everyone instantly or something, right? That's not how it works. And back on the notion of, techniques not working, it's really good for stopping certain kinds of fighters, right? If it works super well on you, that means your style is weak to it, right? Just like certain styles are weak to pocket fighting, right? If you can force them into the phone booth, you can beat them. Certain styles are, vulnerable to being taken down, right? Every style has its kryptonite. Certain styles are vulnerable to leg kicks. Well, there you go. And the same way that you allow things like, different grappling submissions like heel hooks and also knee bars, one of the issues with heel hook specifically is that a lot of people, when they start to feel the pain, it's already close to too late. So they don't tap soon enough anyway. And heel hooks can also end someone's career. And you don't see people trying to get knee bars banned, and they're both defendable, as I mentioned earlier, right? You can defend a knee bar, you can tap to a knee bar, you can tap to a heel hook. You can also just dodge an oblique kick, right? There's even people who have videos out on checking oblique kicks and, all a bunch of defenses to it. I think I saw a video was like top 5 defenses to the oblique kick or something. So, yeah, that's definitely a real thing. In addition to that, you have people saying things like, for example, a lot of traditional martial artists are making the argument that, hey, wait a minute, you're saying things like, side kicks don't work, and, karate as a whole doesn't work, or, Wing Chun doesn't work, or, all these styles, but yet you ban some of the better moves, like you're going to ban the oblique kick, really, which is like a staple of certain styles. That it doesn't make sense if you're saying these styles don't work and then you're banning their moves saying they work too well, right? Like, that seems kind of like nitpicking, because these are the same people that trying to ban the oblique kick that say things like Wing Chun doesn't work, karate doesn't work, but yet you're banning their techniques because they're too effective. Very interesting. Now, last but not least, here's my take. I think that the oblique kick should 100% be allowed because of pretty much everything I just said, right? Like, you can literally defend it. There's grappling equivalents that are not banned. And here's another thing, too. If you ban the oblique kick for causing too much damage, where do you draw the line, right? Like Dana White said on Instagram, like, what's next? Banning spinning elbows, like incorporating helmets. Like, this is a fight, dude. Like, you're literally fighting in a cage for money, right? So, and to see who's the best fighter on the planet. So if you say, oh, let's ban the oblique kick, it does too much damage to the knee. What about fighters that get dropped by regular leg kicks, right? That when you're leg kicking someone to the thigh or heck even the calf, right? You're literally targeting a nerve. Your goal when executing a leg kick, whether you know it or not, whether it's conscious or not, is to essentially give the other person nerve damage, okay? So for those of you that didn't know that, fun fact, you can whip it out at the dinner table or something, I don't know. So yeah, that's another big deal, and also just punches, right? Like, think of Francis Ngannou. Are you gonna see Francis Ngannou knocking someone out cold and say, "Oh, we better ban punches, bro. They're too dangerous." Like, like for real. Like, are you really gonna do that? Are you really gonna see Francis Ngannou hit someone with the jab and then they fly across the cage and you say jabs are too dangerous? Literally, where do you draw the line? Every time someone gets hit in the head at all, whether it be a punch, a kick, a knee, an elbow, they get brain damage, okay? CTE is a real thing, right? So how are you going to say, like, oh, yeah, that's just fine, right? Like, we can have people kicking people in the head, knocking them completely unconscious, mind you, right? In completely dominating them, right? With punches and kicks and making their faces bleed and all this jazz. How is that completely fine and potentially increasing this person's likelihood of getting dementia and Alzheimer's and all those old people diseases, quote unquote? But a little kick to the knee is where you draw the line. Like, is having one less good knee more horrific than having a degenerative brain disease where you don't remember the name of your friends and children. Like, I fail to see why the oblique kick is so bad, right? Especially when, again, you can dodge it. Just like you can dodge that punch, you can dodge that oblique kick, right? Just like you can dodge that round kick, same thing. And so, yeah, I think that's a really big deal, along with the fact that every time you choke someone completely unconscious, that you're killing their brain cells, right? Just limiting the oxygen to someone's brain in general is pretty dangerous, right? So even if they tap or not, once you start to feel that lightheaded sensation, that's literally the oxygen to your brain not being there, right? So, and then same thing with like even an arm bar, right? Like people have gotten their arms snapped in half before, right? Like people aren't saying, oh, ban arm bars or something, right? And even oblique kicks, right? The difference between an oblique kick and say like eye gouging or something is an oblique kick is in most cases more tactical, unless you're John Jones. Then you poke people in the eyes with the utmost tactical nature, okay? But assuming you're not John Jones, eye pokes are usually not as tactical. An oblique kick is literally like a side kick, right? Like, let's use a side kick one as an example. You side kick someone's knee. You can side kick their body, just like you can dodge a side kick to the body, you can dodge a side kick to the knee, right? So all of that stuff doesn't, it's not the same thing. And the same thing with timing it, right? You can time the oblique kick, right? You can time it and different stuff like that. So, and the fact that you can read my timing for my oblique kick also means that I have to time my oblique kick, so you can't read my timing, right? And so that's something that I view as very important, the skill level between just sort of tagging someone in the eyeball and kicking them in the knee. First of all, aiming at their knee while they're trying to punch and kick you is a big deal, right? And also, you can't exactly oblique kick someone when you're on the ground. If eye pokes were illegal, you can shove your fingers in someone's skull while you're on the ground, which is totally different than just kicking someone's knee when they're literally standing and can dodge and maneuver and all that. So, yeah, oblique kicks should definitely be allowed. If you want to know one of my other controversial takes, click here. And other than that, all the links to my Discord servers and social medias will be in the description, along with some other goodies.